The lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting long shadows on the concrete floor of cell block D. It was 4:03 a.m. inside the Black Hollow Correctional Facility, an underground fortress carved into the mountainside, where only the worst of the worst were buried alive in steel and stone. The guard's footsteps echoed as he made his routine checks. There was never any deviation. Cameras covered every inch of the corridor. Motion sensors lined the cells. The inmates in this block had no contact with the outside world. No visitors. No phone calls. No windows. He reached cell D14. And stopped. The light inside was off. The motion detector blinked green. He tapped the glass. Lights. Nothing. He drew his keycard, swiped twice, and the cell door hissed open. What he saw stopped him cold. The room was empty. The bed, made with perfect military precision, was untouched. The stainless steel toilet, the desk, the chair, all in place. But the inmate? Gone. There were no signs of struggle. No breach in the door. No crawl space. No duct. No hole in the ceiling or floor. Just silence. The inmate assigned to cell D14 had vanished. That inmate was Elias Archer. The most heavily monitored prisoner in the Western Hemisphere. A man whose very name triggered red flags in international intelligence databases. A man who had, for over 2 decades, done what no one else had done, not once, not twice, but 7 times: escape. From prisons with 24/7 surveillance. From concrete tombs with biometric locks. From maximum security isolation units. From international black sites that officially did not exist. He escaped. And then disappeared, leaving behind nothing but riddles. The prison went into lockdown. Helicopters lit the night sky. Every exit point was sealed. Guards were interrogated. Every second of surveillance footage was combed through. Nothing. No glitch. No bribe. No error. He was just gone. The warden, pale and shaking, summoned the U.S. Marshal in charge of Archer's case. Her name, Claire Mendez. She had chased Archer across 4 continents and lost him twice. She knew what this meant. She stood in that empty cell for a full minute before speaking. No signs of a struggle, she said. No physical escape route, the warden replied. No movement on any camera? She asked again. The head of security handed her a tablet. See for yourself. She played the feed. It showed Archer lying on his bunk at 2:46 a.m. At 2:48, the screen glitched for 1 frame, less than a second. At 2:49, the bed was empty. She rewound it. Played it again. Still, that moment of distortion. Was this edited? She demanded. We pulled this directly from the secure feed. Redundant backup systems. Triple encrypted, the text said. There is no way this was tampered with. It came straight from the source. Claire Mendez stared at the screen. Then either he can control time. She let the sentence trail off. Because even to her, that sounded insane. She turned and faced the back wall of the cell. Etched into the steel, carved in perfect symmetry, were 2 words: checkmate. A chill rolled through the room. This was not just a breakout. It was a message. A warning. Another move in a long, invisible game played by a man who should not have existed. No one knew where Elias Archer was born. No known family. No fingerprints in any system before his first arrest. No clear photograph. Half the files on him were redacted, even for federal agents. And the only thing more impossible than catching him? Keeping him. He escaped again. And again. And again. Each time from a prison said to be inescapable. Each time leaving behind nothing but a puzzle. Each time redefining what it meant to be truly free. But who was Elias Archer? How did he plan each move with such surgical precision? And why did he always leave clues behind, like he wanted to be found, but only by someone who could solve his riddles? This is not just the story of a man who broke out of prison. This is the untold story of the world's greatest prison escapee. And it begins with his final vanishing act. But the question that haunts every agent, every warden, every agency that ever crossed his path is not how he got out. It's what he was really trying to get into. Because Elias Archer was not running. He was orchestrating something. And this? This was only the opening move. They called him Elias Archer. But that name, like everything else about him, was most likely a lie. There was no birth certificate. No childhood photos. No social security record. No mention in school databases, hospital systems, or military archives. Even the earliest police reports that referenced him, arrests, interrogations, surveillance logs, read more like fiction than fact. Redactions blacked out entire pages. Names were missing. Locations blurred. Files stamped classified appeared in local law enforcement servers without explanation, only to vanish days later. What little was known began with a single event. Chicago. Winter, 2001. An unmarked armored truck veered off route during a routine cash transport. It didn't make it to the bank. It didn't show up at the depot. It simply disappeared, along with $8.4 million in federal funds. 4 days later, the truck was discovered in an underground parking garage beneath an abandoned steel mill. The engine was still warm. Inside, nothing. No guards. No cash. No blood. No signs of violence. Instead, what investigators found was a chessboard. One piece had been moved. The Queen. At first, the FBI suspected domestic terrorism. The theft had all the hallmarks of a coordinated, multi-person operation. But surveillance showed no accomplices. Only one figure, captured briefly in the elevator security footage. Tall. Hooded. Moving with deliberate, almost mechanical precision. The image was blurry, distorted by interference. Facial recognition failed. But investigators gave him a name, Elias Archer. And then, as if summoned, reports of similar thefts began pouring in from Boston, Phoenix, Berlin, and Tokyo. In each case, the crime was clean. No evidence. No confrontation. No trace. Only the chessboard remained. And only one move. In every location, the Queen was the piece he touched. Archer was not a common thief. He never left with paintings or jewels. He targeted data. Blueprints. Experimental tech. Intelligence materials. And then, inexplicably, he would resurface weeks or months later, inside government facilities, private research labs, and high-security banks, only to vanish again. He was not stealing for profit. He was after access. Power. Knowledge. And he was always ahead of them. The more investigators dug into his identity, the deeper the mystery became. Fingerprints matched no one. DNA returned inconclusive results. His voice was never recorded. He never used a phone. Never left a digital trace. For nearly a decade, Elias Archer became a code word in classified meetings, used by international task forces and off-the-books intelligence operatives who believed Archer might not be a man, but a shadow network. A myth. A smokescreen. A ghost. Until he was captured. Or at least, they thought he was. It happened in 2012. London Heathrow International Airport. A man with no luggage, no passport, and no record of boarding passed through customs without triggering any alarms. He walked directly into the arrivals lounge and sat at a cafe for 6 minutes. At 9:43 a.m., he approached the check-in counter of an international airline and calmly handed the attendant a folded piece of paper. The attendant opened it. Inside was a list of encrypted IP addresses linked to illegal international weapons transfers, and a note that read, "You have exactly 90 seconds to call them off." Before security could intervene, he stepped back, held up both hands, and whispered, "You finally caught me." That man was Elias Archer. But no one knew why he gave himself up. He was detained in a secure MI5 facility beneath London. Interrogated by 3 governments. Waterboarded. Deprived of sleep. Hooked up to biometric sensors. And still, he told them nothing. Except once. During a late-night session, one agent asked him, "Why the chessboards?" He leaned forward. "For every prison that locks a man inside," he said, "there is another prison, one he builds himself. The Queen is the only piece with no boundaries." Then he smiled. A week later, he escaped. From a facility where he was chained to the floor. Where he had no tools. Where his cell had no door handle, no light switch, and no access to electronics. He left behind no exit trail. Only another chessboard. This time, the Queen was tipped over. And next to it was a note, you're still 3 moves behind. From that moment on, global agencies no longer considered Elias Archer a suspect. They considered him a phenomenon. Some believed he was the result of a rogue psychological experiment, designed to test the limits of human adaptability and escape response. Others were convinced he was an intelligence asset gone rogue, trained by a government that no longer claimed responsibility. A few even whispered that he was something more. Something synthetic. An artificial construct built from deep learning algorithms, implanted into a real person. But one fact remained constant: wherever Archer appeared, control vanished. Power shifted. Secrets leaked. And systems collapsed. Not violently. Not through destruction. But with quiet, calculated precision. Archer was not just running from something. He was reprogramming the world, one institution at a time. His prison escapes were not mistakes in security. They were statements. Moves in a game that no one else fully understood. And if the records were to be believed, every time someone tried to trap him, he let them. Because Elias Archer was not afraid of being caught. He was waiting for it. It was part of his design. And according to the last agent who ever saw him in person, he left with one final whisper before vanishing: "You built the cage. I just learned how to walk through the walls." The year was 2005. Chilly autumn rain soaked the streets of Prague, where a routine security sweep at a diplomatic compound triggered an unexpected breach alarm. The guards moved in expecting a false flag. Instead, they found a man standing silently in a sealed server room. He wore black gloves. No weapons. No phone. No identification. But on the screen behind him glowed a series of intercepted transmissions, encrypted files pulled from the databases of 3 foreign embassies. Nuclear positioning codes. Diplomatic communications. Trade secrets. The man raised his hand slowly and smiled. He said just one thing: "You took your time." The man was booked under the name Elias Archer. He offered no resistance. No defense. No justification. Yet within minutes of his arrest, the world changed. Systems went dark. Files disappeared. Cameras glitched. Even the arresting officers reported strange interference in their radios, whispers in languages they did not speak. Archer was transferred to a classified black site in Siberia, jointly operated by American and Russian intelligence. The site was known as Facility K-22, a decommissioned nuclear bunker retrofitted for deep interrogation protocol. It had one purpose: to disappear people. The facility was buried 6 stories underground. No sunlight. No clocks. No sound but what the guards allowed. Temperatures dropped below freezing. There were no names, only numbers. Prisoners were stripped of everything: identity, memory, hope. They placed Archer in a steel cell with no visible door. It was lowered in from above and welded shut. He was not interrogated for the first 2 weeks. He was forgotten. Then came phase 1, what the staff called mental collapse induction. Lights pulsed randomly. Alarms triggered in patterns designed to prevent sleep. Walls buzzed with low-frequency sounds that made the body tremble but couldn't be heard by the ear. Archer didn't flinch. When asked how he was coping, he replied, "You are building mazes I walked through years ago." By the 3rd month, doctors noted something strange. His vital signs weren't degrading. In fact, they were improving. His blood pressure normalized. Heart rate steady. Reflexes sharper than baseline. He wasn't just surviving. He was adapting. One night, a guard, known only as Mikhail, entered Archer's cell to deliver water. He found Archer crouched in the corner, fingers moving silently, almost rhythmically, along the wall, etching lines into the steel with the metal edge of a food tray. Mikhail called for backup. By the time they entered, Archer was sitting calmly, his back to the markings. On the wall, a chessboard had been drawn, perfectly spaced, meticulously carved. Only one piece was present. The queen. Over the intercom, a voice demanded, "What does it mean?" Archer turned. "It means you are still playing checkers." The next morning, Mikhail was reassigned. That same night, he disappeared. Security footage showed him walking down the hallway outside Archer's cell. Then static. Then nothing. He was never seen again. Authorities assumed Archer had orchestrated his escape. But they were wrong. He hadn't left yet. He wanted them to know he could. 6 more months passed. Archer was moved to a containment pod outfitted with biometric locks, laser tripwires, AI-driven surveillance. 4 guards were assigned to monitor him in rotating shifts. And still, the anomalies increased. Computers shut down. Lights dimmed. Equipment fried itself from the inside. The facility's mainframe, operated by a top-tier military-grade system, crashed entirely. Every backup failed. When they rebooted, only one file remained. Video. The footage showed Archer, inside his cell, staring directly into the camera. He was smiling. "You've already lost," he said. The file then erased itself. 2 days later, Archer escaped. No alarms were triggered. No locks broken. No guards injured. His cell remained sealed. But he was gone. The only clue left behind was the chessboard, this time with both the queen and king knocked over. Investigators were baffled. They tore apart the cell, scanned for digital interference, checked every ventilation system, water pipe, and structural weak point. Nothing. It was as if the man had dematerialized. Facility K-22 was shut down weeks later. The incident was erased from all official records. Agents who had worked the case were reassigned, discharged, or simply disappeared. And yet, Archer reappeared just 5 months later, this time in Istanbul, where he infiltrated a data exchange between 2 international defense contractors posing as a blind violinist. Security cameras caught only fragments of his movements. Every time someone tried to follow him, the signal cut out. He played 3 notes on his violin, whispered something to one of the men, and walked away. The next day, the defense network of an entire country went offline. Once again, a queen-shaped chess piece was found in the server room, this time carved out of obsidian. The message was clear. He was not hiding. He was performing. And every escape was part of the show. But the world still did not understand why. Why he allowed himself to be captured. Why he taunted them with his escapes. Why he never hurt anyone directly. It was never about blood. It was about the illusion of control, and how easily it shattered when tested. Archer didn't escape prisons. He escaped assumptions. He made the impossible look effortless because he understood something most people refuse to accept, that the walls we build to keep danger out often serve only to keep truth locked in. Elias Archer? He was after the truth. Or maybe something beyond it. Something the rest of us were never meant to see. Paris. Spring, 2009. The Louvre was shut down for a private gala, a gathering of world leaders, billionaires, and royalty. Officially, the event was a cultural summit. Unofficially, it was a covert meeting of the global elite. Security was impenetrable. Every square meter of the building was monitored. Every guest vetted through layers of biometric scans. Aerial drones circled overhead. Armed guards flanked the perimeters. The French Ministry of the Interior classified it as the most secure night in Paris since World War II. At exactly 8:46 p.m., a single light in the Grand Gallery flickered, once, then twice. Then everything went black. Emergency protocols activated. Backup generators kicked in. Lights returned after 11 seconds. In those 11 seconds, one thing changed. The Code of Hammurabi, a priceless Mesopotamian stone stele weighing nearly 4 tons, was gone. Not stolen. Gone. No alarms. No noise. No disturbance. Security footage simply skipped those 11 seconds. In its place, a new object stood on the pedestal, a black chess piece. Bishop. The French government denied the incident. The official narrative claimed the artifact was removed for preservation. But internally, panic spread. How could anyone remove a multi-ton object without detection? Interpol was activated. Intelligence communities across Europe began to whisper a name, Elias Archer. There was only one problem: he was already in custody. 2 weeks before the Louvre incident, Archer had been apprehended in Tokyo after manipulating a private elevator system to bypass 127 security layers in a corporate tower. Authorities swore it was him. Facial recognition, DNA, fingerprints, voice pattern match, 99.97%. Yet, he never spoke during interrogation. Never moved beyond a slow, unsettling smile. Then, one night, the holding facility caught fire. The guards claimed it started in the server room. Others swore they saw something else, a man in the surveillance feed walking into the flame. Not away. Fire destroyed all evidence. No body was recovered. And 3 days later, a letter arrived at the Interpol archives in Lyon. Typed on carbon paper. No fingerprints. No return address. It read, "The game is not about stealing. The game is about reminding them it was never truly theirs." It was signed, EA. The Louvre heist was never solved. But it was not the artifact that scared people. It was the silence. Message hidden in what was not said. Because if someone could walk into the most secure location on Earth and remove a 4-ton artifact in 11 seconds without detection, then nothing was safe. Not governments. Not secrets. Not reality. After the Louvre, Archer became more than a man. He became a myth. Or worse, a question without an answer. Who was he working for? Was he working for anyone? How could he be in 2 places at once? Theories exploded across darknet forums, intelligence agencies, and whistleblower leaks. Some believed he was ex-intelligence, trained under a now erased Cold War program. Others claimed he was the result of human experimentation, a mind too evolved to be contained. One anonymous source even stated, "You're not chasing a man. You're chasing a mirror that doesn't reflect." In response, world powers escalated their defenses. Digital blacklists were updated with his image. He was banned from every airport, seaport, and border in 138 countries. Private security companies were given blank checks to track him. A few even tried to build psychological profiles. What they discovered was chilling. Archer displayed no narcissism. No sociopathy. No standard traits of criminality. Instead, he showed restraint. Purpose. He only acted when the world was watching, and when something deeper was being threatened. In every major theft, there was a pattern. He never stole for money. He stole symbols. Truths buried under propaganda. Artifacts lost in war and rewritten history. He stole things people were never meant to remember. Because once stolen, they had to be acknowledged. Even for a moment. And each time, he left behind a clue. Not a signature. A challenge. Because to Elias Archer, the escape was never from a place. It was from the lie. From the illusion of ownership. The illusion of borders. The illusion that any prison, physical or ideological, could hold someone who truly saw beyond the bars. That was the real heist. And the world? It had no idea how to stop him. But it would try. Desperately. Next came the vault. A prison designed specifically for Elias Archer. A vault built not to hold things, but to hold him. They called it the Citadel. The Citadel was not a prison in the traditional sense. It was an idea engineered into concrete. A fortress constructed in complete secrecy, deep beneath the Colorado Rockies, entirely off the grid, unlisted in satellite databases, unrecognized by any official government body. No windows. No guards. No access points visible to the outside world. The only way in or out was through an underground tunnel system accessible via biometric ID, retinal scan, encrypted neural passcode, and a rotating encryption phrase spoken in 5 languages. Each layer of access required a different human being with clearance, and none knew the full route. It was designed to house just one inmate. Elias Archer. After the Louvre incident, the governments of 6 nations came together under a classified joint task force codenamed Phantom Line. The objective was clear: capture Archer. Understand him. And above all, contain him. Billions of dollars were funneled through shell corporations, defense contractors, and off-the-books aerospace labs to build the Citadel. The cell they constructed was something out of science fiction. It floated, literally, in a chamber suspended by electromagnetic fields. No walls. No seams. Just a cube of reinforced transparent alloy held midair like a ghost. There were no physical locks to pick. No doors to open. No hinges or screws. The air was filtered through nanoscopic pores impossible to reverse engineer. Nutrients delivered intravenously. Weight adjusted in wavelengths to disrupt circadian control, rendering time meaningless. The Citadel did not just confine the body. It confused the mind. No pattern. No rhythm. No reality. And still, they were afraid. They studied him like a virus. Monitored him through multiple AI systems trained on predicting human behavior. But nothing worked. He would stand still for hours, sometimes days, eyes closed, as if meditating or listening to something far away. Then, suddenly, he would smile. And within minutes, something would go wrong. First it was the lights. Then the oxygen filtration. Then a system crash in the mainframe that operated the entire facility, despite being air-gapped from any network. Technicians rebooted everything. Only one log was left behind. A single command line message written in a language that no one recognized, until a linguistic cryptographer traced it to a forgotten dialect from the kingdom of Aksum, dead for over 1,500 years. The message translated as, "The door is not the key. The silence is." After 6 months of holding Archer inside the Citadel, no progress had been made. He hadn't spoken a word. Hadn't moved from his position. Then one morning, the sensors picked up a change. Heart rate elevated. Cortisol spiked. Pupil dilation. He was preparing. But for what? Panic rippled through the control center. Security measures were doubled. Emergency lockdown protocols activated. Military units placed on standby. At 2:13 a.m., all contact was lost. The control room screens went dark. Backup power initiated. The cameras came back online. And Archer's cell was empty. Still floating. Still sealed. But he was gone. The floor below the floating cube remained untouched. The fields around it unbroken. Sensors showed no breach. The biometric locks were never accessed. And yet he was no longer there. Instead, in the center of the chamber, on the platform where he once stood, was an object no one had seen before. A rook, the castle-shaped chess piece, carved out of diamond. Perfectly cut. Inside it, etched in microscopic lettering, was a single sentence: "I built this game before you learned to move your first piece." The Citadel was abandoned. All funding frozen. All traces buried. Everyone involved in its construction was silenced under the highest security clearance in existence. But rumors spread. A junior analyst who had reviewed some of the logs leaked one detail before disappearing. The final sensor data, right before blackout, recorded a brief spike in electromagnetic readings, an impossible waveform. When modeled visually, it resembled one thing. A spiral. Clockwise. Perfect. Endless. To some, it was just interference. To others, it was a signature. But what did it mean? Was Archer human? Was he an illusion? A manifestation of some advanced experiment? No one knew. But the fact remained, they had built a prison so perfect it was called inescapable. And still, Elias Archer had escaped. No tunnels. No keys. No resistance. Only disappearance. Some say the Citadel was never real. That it was a psychological construct designed by Archer himself, using disinformation to create the illusion of imprisonment. Others say he let them build it. Let them believe they were in control. Because every escape was part of the performance. And like every great magician, he never revealed how the trick was done. Instead, he reminded them, the trick was believing it was a trick at all. The escape from the Citadel was not just a prison break. It was a global event. Within hours of the breach, red alerts were triggered across military networks in 5 countries. Protocols buried deep within black budget programs, those meant for existential threats like nuclear first strikes or alien contact, were activated for one man. Elias Archer. The world's most elusive fugitive was once again free. And this time, he had walked out of a prison that officially did not exist. The fallout was immediate and devastating. The US intelligence community was paralyzed. Interpol issued a silent Tier 1 directive: no public announcements, no press briefings. Just quiet panic. The escape raised unanswerable questions. How had he breached a facility designed to be impervious? How did he escape electromagnetic suspension? Had someone helped him? Or worse, was the entire imprisonment an illusion? What if they had never contained him at all? Some suspected sabotage. Others believed Archer had manipulated global leaders into building the Citadel for reasons no one yet understood. Regardless, the manhunt began. Operation Black Echo was activated, an intergovernmental response team combining elite units from MI6, Mossad, CIA, DGSE, and the SVR. Their mission: locate, contain, and neutralize Elias Archer by any means necessary. For the first time in history, rival nations cooperated in absolute secrecy, sharing data, assets, and surveillance systems. Archer was declared an international variable too dangerous to remain free. Not a criminal. A destabilizing force. Every known location connected to Archer's past was scrubbed. Safe houses were raided. Associates questioned. Art dealers, antique experts, and known black market brokers vanished in a flurry of midnight arrests. None had seen him. Or if they had, none dared to speak. Because Archer's legend had grown darker. Not violent. Not malicious. But otherworldly. Untouchable. Every time agents got close, something went wrong. In Marseille, a strike team surveilling a suspected Archer informant was neutralized by a cascading systems failure. Every GPS device glitched simultaneously, sending coordinates into the Atlantic. In Bogotá, 2 agents pursuing a lead drove into a tunnel, and never came out. No wreckage was ever found. In Kyoto, a drone captured 3 seconds of footage of a man believed to be Archer walking through a Zen garden. The footage froze just as the man turned to face the camera. When techs analyzed the frame, they found something impossible. His face was perfectly blurred, not by motion, not by lighting, but by design. Each pixel scrambled with a unique identifier, rendering facial recognition algorithms completely useless. They had seen his form, but not his identity. Like a ghost in the machine. The deeper intelligence operatives probed, the more bizarre the incidents became. In Berlin, a cold storage vault was discovered inside an abandoned metro tunnel, containing a handwritten map in 17 languages, including several that were either extinct or unconfirmed to ever exist. The map plotted global surveillance systems, weak points in biometric databases, and predicted technological advancements within 0.4% of accuracy. It was dated 1992. Initial belief was that it had to be a hoax. But the ink, the materials, the decay rate, all were confirmed as authentic. Someone, presumably Archer, had written it decades earlier. And he had been right. One CIA official, after reviewing the document, went off-grid within 24 hours. A final message left behind on her secure terminal read: "We are not hunting him. We are following where he wants us to look." Publicly, the world carried on. But behind closed doors, leaders were rattled. Private briefings revealed patterns dating back over 60 years, art heists, system failures, unexplained prison breaks, all connected by anomalies no one had previously linked together. And at the center of each, a faceless man. Always calm. Always one step ahead. But now, there was something new. A message. Agents found it hidden inside a secure facility in Nevada, a biometric lockbox that should have required 13 levels of clearance. Instead, it was open. Inside, a single chessboard. All pieces arranged mid-game. White to move. Attached was a note: "This is not your move." By now, some in the intelligence community had started to shift their view. Was Archer not just escaping, but leading them? Was he steering global movements? Redirecting attention? Exposing weaknesses on purpose? One theory emerged, wild, yet oddly plausible. That Elias Archer was not merely escaping prisons. He was escaping systems. Financial systems. Data systems. Psychological systems. That his heists and disappearances were not crimes, but statements. And that every escape was his way of demonstrating that nothing mankind builds is unbreakable, not banks, not governments, not truth. He was not playing the game. He was rewriting it. And so, the manhunt changed shape. From pursuit to obsession. From capture to comprehension. A classified AI program called Janus was developed, a quantum system trained exclusively on Archer-related data, capable of detecting patterns invisible to human logic. It ran 24/7 for 2 years. And then, it stopped. No error. No glitch. It simply powered itself down. Technicians were baffled, until they found one final printout left in the machine's output tray. A single sentence: "You cannot map what was never meant to be found." Janus was dismantled. Its components destroyed. And with it, the official global effort to track Elias Archer faded. Unofficially, the hunt never ended. a secret cell of analysts still monitors anomalies around the globe. A whisper network among data scientists, cryptographers, and psychologists exchanging clues, symbols, and sightings. They call themselves the Spiral. Not because they believe Archer is a man, but because they believe he is an idea, and ideas cannot be imprisoned. Not by walls. Not by time. Not by fear. After Elias Archer vanished from the face of the earth for the final time, what remained was not a trail, but a pattern. His escapes were not random. His movements were not chaotic. They were deliberate, choreographed like a symphony composed in reverse. Every beat timed to perfection. Every silence louder than the last. Investigators began noticing that Archer often left behind strange objects after his escapes. Not clues in the traditional sense, nothing that led to his capture. Instead, they were artifacts. Each carefully placed, each cryptic, but always with some deeper meaning. In Morocco, a monastery's library held a book he allegedly left behind, a single copy of The Art of War with handwritten annotations in the margins, corrections, it seemed, not commentary. Lines were crossed out and rewritten with shocking insight. Some of those changes now form part of Black Ops military curriculum across several nations. In Greece, inside a hollow wall near a disused NATO outpost, a chessboard was found. The game on it was a replica of a match played between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky in 1972. But Archer had added 5 extra pieces, each carved from volcanic glass. The new game was unwinnable by any known strategy. In Argentina, a sculptor claimed Archer once walked into his gallery and handed him a folded napkin with a rough sketch. That sketch was later turned into a sculpture that seems to change shape depending on which angle it is viewed from. Physicists have studied it for years, it obeys no known geometric rules. These were not messages left to taunt. They were philosophical riddles, breadcrumbs pointing toward a truth beyond simple comprehension. But then came something more direct. A package surfaced in Zurich in a deposit box no one had opened in over 30 years. The box was registered under the name K.S. Archer. Inside was a sealed titanium cube. It contained one item, an untraceable solid-state drive and a handwritten letter. The letter read, "Truth is not what you are told. It is what you see when you stop trying to understand." I did not run. I redefined stillness. I was not hiding. I was unlearning attention. And I was not escaping. I was reintroducing myself to freedom. When decrypted, the hard drive revealed a video file. In it, a man sat in a chair, backlit, face obscured. The voice, unmistakable. Calm. Measured. Elias Archer. He looked directly at the camera and spoke. "You built prisons of stone and metal. I walked through them. You built prisons of law and logic. I bypassed them. But the most dangerous cells were not built for me. They were built by you, for yourselves. You have locked away wonder behind skepticism, potential behind protocol, and truth behind consensus. I only escaped what you chose to believe was unbreakable." He paused, then added, "Now, ask yourself, who is really free?" The video ends. The drive wiped itself. Permanently. This final message sparked debate, conspiracy, and obsession. Some saw him as a modern-day Prometheus, stealing knowledge from the gods and handing it back to humanity. Others saw him as a ghost, a con man of mythical proportions who manipulated the world into seeing him as more than a man. But there was one interpretation that grew louder over time. That Elias Archer was not trying to disappear. He was trying to show us how. Not how to escape prison, but how to escape systems, beliefs, constraints, digital identities, cultural assumptions. His message was not just about escape, it was about liberation. And in that final act, Elias Archer transformed himself from a criminal into something else entirely. Not a fugitive. Not a myth. But a mirror. A reflection of every person's silent wish to be untraceable. To be unknown. To be unburdened by the weight of the visible world. And perhaps, that is why no one has seen him since. Because he is no longer running. He is simply gone, beyond reach, beyond data, beyond definition. He did not vanish. He dissolved. Into the folds of space. Into the silence of systems. Into the forgotten architecture of freedom. And with him, he took the one thing the world could never reclaim, the idea that no prison is absolute. As the years passed, Elias Archer's legend only grew, Because legends do not require proof, only belief. And belief in Elias Archer became a global phenomenon. He was not just remembered, he was mythologized. In intelligence circles, Archer became a cautionary tale, a reminder that no system is infallible, no cell escape proof, no man predictable. Interpol established an internal codename for anomalies resembling his patterns, Protocol E. Anytime a high-level prisoner disappeared under mysterious circumstances, agents whispered, could it be Archer? Or someone using his blueprint? To governments, he was a data ghost. To prison architects, a flaw in their blueprint. To storytellers, a goldmine. But to ordinary people? He was something else entirely. He became a symbol. Online forums exploded with sightings, rumors, timelines, decrypted documents. A subreddit named r/Project Archer gained 500,000 followers in less than a year. Its members dissected every frame of surveillance footage, every interview with former inmates, and every escape attempt that echoed even remotely of Archer's tactics. Some argued he had died decades ago, and that every escape after 1985 was the work of his disciples. Others believed he was still alive, living off the grid in a quantum bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. A popular theory claimed that Elias Archer never actually existed. That he was a narrative constructed by rogue intelligence agencies to cover up a series of bureaucratic failures. That each escape attributed to him was, in fact, a separate incident rebranded under one persona to preserve institutional dignity. But then came the whispers of the manuscript. A supposed 1,200-page document written in cipher, passed hand to hand among certain circles in Eastern Europe, allegedly authored by Archer himself. Titled The Construct and the Escape, it outlined not just how to physically escape confinement, but how to mentally and philosophically sever oneself from societal constructs. Analysts who claimed to have seen it described it as part mathematics, part poetry, part warfare doctrine. Some dismissed it as an elaborate hoax. Others claimed it was dangerous, capable of inspiring the kind of radical detachment that could collapse entire institutions if adopted en masse. To this day, no one has verified its existence. But that was always the point. Elias Archer's legacy did not rest on confirmation. It thrived on the edge of plausibility. And it inspired a strange movement, urban escapism. A growing subculture of individuals attempting to live completely off-grid, not for survivalism, but for self-erasure. People who deleted their digital footprints, faked their deaths, moved through countries without identification, some of them citing Elias Archer as their spiritual guide. His name became synonymous with total freedom. Not the kind sold in markets or promised by constitutions, but the kind that lives just outside the borders of surveillance, outside the gravitational pull of reputation. Pure freedom. A man once interviewed on a Fringe podcast said, "We are all born into prisons." Archer was just the first one who realized every wall was imaginary. Some philosophers went further. A German theorist argued that Archer's entire life was an art installation performed in real time, a conceptual project designed to challenge the boundaries of identity, legality, and control. A French philosopher claimed Archer was the final evolution of the postmodern man, detached, mythologized, ungovernable. A digital theorist in Japan proposed that Archer might have achieved what he called post-existence, a state in which a person no longer has a fixed identity and can morph through data networks as a ghost in the machine. And yet, amid all the speculation, something odd happened. Prison escapes dropped. Not just because security improved, but because Archer's myth made institutions paranoid. Architects started designing for Archer. Every high-security facility built after 2000 included an Elias Test, a psychological protocol where designers asked, if Elias Archer were here, how would he get out? Inadvertently, the man who broke prisons became the invisible architect behind their evolution. He changed not just cells, but systems. How we define control. How we think about identity. How we measure presence. And what makes his story even more haunting is this: even if Elias Archer is alive today, we will likely never know. Because true disappearance is not achieved by running faster than the system. It is achieved by convincing the system you never existed at all. That is the legacy. And that is the true story. Not of a criminal. Not of a fugitive. But of the world's greatest escapee, not from prison. But from reality itself. What began as a jailbreak in the dead of night became one of the most enigmatic journeys in modern history, a story not just about walls and keys, but about human will, perception, and transformation. Elias Archer was more than an escape artist. He was a philosopher in motion, a living contradiction, both prisoner and liberator, criminal and sage. His story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. Not just about how he escaped, but about what it really means to be free. Is freedom the absence of walls? Or is it the absence of fear? Is it anonymity? Or is it the full ownership of one's identity, even when no one else understands it? For some, Archer's tale is dangerous, glorifying lawlessness and undermining justice. But for others, it is deeply human. Because beneath the calculated genius, beneath the shadow games and ghost trails, was a man who simply refused to be defined. By rules. By records. By reputation. He shattered every label the world tried to force upon him, not out of spite, but perhaps out of necessity. Because the system did not fail Elias Archer. It never truly understood him in the first place. What if the very act of categorizing him, fugitive, criminal, genius, myth, is what he was trying to escape all along? In the end, we are left with fragments. A few photographs. A blurred video. A sealed cell. A name etched into databases and whispered in secret circles. And perhaps that is how Elias Archer wanted it. Not to be remembered for what he did, but for what he revealed about the systems that bound the rest of us. That no structure is invincible. That no identity is immutable. That even in the deepest, darkest corners of confinement, mental or physical, there is always a door, if only we dare to look for it. Some say he is still out there, walking among crowds, unrecognized. Others believe he has transcended this world altogether. But maybe, just maybe, Elias Archer lives inside the question. A question that each of us must answer for ourselves. What would it take for you to truly escape? Not from prison, but from everything that ever told you who you had to be.